Hi guys, welcome to the video, welcome to Gatwick in the UK, and welcome to this beastie here. This is the recently released Inibuilds Airbus A300, only released about a week ago, and we're in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, and this is what we're going to have a look at today. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to mention a couple of things about the aircraft, which I think are pertinent to what we're doing. So let me just bring this over. Okay, so here we are. So we're actually going to be taking it on a trip, although I will edit it. I'm going to be going from Gatwick up towards Edinburgh, so it's not a particularly long trip for an aircraft of this type, but it should be good to demonstrate a couple of things in terms of its auto flight, which is quite an important thing. But as I say, I got the flight plan there. Now, I just want to just mention the number of variations of this. Now, I am a fan of the A300. The first time I came across it in the sim was Inibuilds when they had it in X-Plane, and they had it in X-Plane 11 and 12 I think it was, and they had both the A300 and the A310, and I fell in love with it and I bought and paid both. So you can imagine my happiness when along came Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 and one of the default free aircraft was the A310, and I was like, man, but there we go. So the thing is with the, it's obviously available for the Inibuilds website. Thing is, you've got to be careful which edition you get, because there was a version for 2020. So the A310 is default in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. It's also default in 2024. However, you could buy the A300-600 airliner for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and what they've done is they've done a moderate update to make it compatible as a free update. So if you had it in 2020, you can get the free update here, which is absolutely fine. But it's initially released in beta status, so there is some stuff here, a little bit of information. However, this review is all about the 2024 edition. So it has been updated, it has been significant. Now the first thing that I would draw your attention to is $53.99 is towards the top end of price. However, if you had the 2020 version, the upgrade is only £10, £9.99, excluding VAT. So as a result of that, I went out and spent my money and got the upgrade to the 2024 version, and I have to say I am not disappointed in the least. So a return to excellence, yes, it was excellent in all versions, including the X-Plane one. I really enjoyed the X-Plane one. It was a fantastic thing. But they go into quite a lot of detail in their web page about the various enhanced aerodynamics, etc. As I say, the previous version, you'll see it as for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 and 2020. So it's got an update to make it more compatible, or to make it compatible, but it is a beta. But for the sake of having £10, I would suggest it's probably worth going up to the premium version anyway. So anyway, that's that. What we're going to do is, having had a look at that, as I say, I've got a quick route that I'm going to fly. It's going to enable us more than anything to do with departure and an arrival, which will be, if you like, the significant parts of the auto flight. So as ever, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the outside, the inside, take it for a flight and see what we come up with, some sort of conclusion at the end, and see how we get on. Now, it's going to be quite in-depth because it's a high fidelity model, and there's a few things that I'm going to highlight as we go through. The first thing is just looking at this thing. It's a DHL freighter. It looks grubby as heck. Absolutely fantastic. I absolutely adore that simple fact that their liveries are not pristine. So what we'll do is we'll just zoom in a little bit, and in fact what I want to do is just demonstrate the scale of this thing. So let's just click that, click that, click that. Look at the size of this beast. Look at it. It's huge. Now, I remember back in the day when these things were fairly new to market, there was it wasn't a magazine article, it was a book that went on about the battle of the wide bodies, as it was called, the battle between this thing from Airbus and the Boeing 767. But this thing is glorious to look at. Really is glorious to look at on the walk around, but you can really get a scale, an impression of the scale and the size of this thing. It's a long way up, isn't it? Can you imagine having to come down with one of the escape ropes out of the cockpit? So what we'll do is, whilst we're walking around, we'll have a look at some of the details that are down here. We'll start at the nose wheel, where we always start. We'll have a look at the higher bits when we get up into the drone, but look at the attention to detail and the paintwork and the aesthetics. Unfortunately can't zoom when you're in the walk around mode. Now, coming over to the nose gear, you've obviously got the chocks that are not clickable. You use those from the FB inside, but look at the state of the tyres and the wheels. The modelling of this stuff is absolutely fantastic, but the scuffs and scrapes, and look at the nose leg. Look at that for the attention to detail. That is staggering, and I dare to say that's probably the best I've seen in the sim, or any sim for any aircraft. Look at that. That is absolutely staggering. It's just unbelievable, that level of detail. And I've got my frame rate up in the top right. I'm still running 76 frames a second, but that is quite remarkable. Looking down at the tyres and wheels, I mean, words fail me. We've got rusted bolts in here and all sorts. That is just quite remarkable as a piece of modelling. I'm in awe. Even the nose wheel bay doors. The attention to detail that's gone into this is really quite staggering, and the 3D modelling is just next level. It really is next level. We can't have a look in the engine until we get the covers off, so let's just pop inside. We'll mention the tablet in a bit, but ground equipment, hopefully we can get rid of them here. We will open the door. Some of this might not actually come online. Attach left stairs. Toggle luggage. Oh, hear the noises. The sounds are great. Sounds are absolutely great in this thing. It's obviously linked to SimBrief. It's already got it in. I haven't even uploaded it. It's just got it. It's gone and got it on its own accord. Don't really need to import it from SimBrief. Let's get it in from SimBrief anyway. How cool. Unless that's the last flight I did in it. It might be. Different sorts of... Yeah. Oh, we've got the equipment now. We're going to try and get rid of the chocks, weren't we? But we'll leave them. Oh no, we're going to try and get rid of the engine covers. Can we take those off manually? Is it in here? Must be in here then. Ground equipment. Remove covers. There we go. And we'll take the chocks off, we might as well. Because we're in a sim, who cares? Right. And in here we've got the engines. Forgive the stuttering, it's just the way it's scrolling. With individually numbered blades. It's staggering. The 3D modelling in this thing is absolutely, it's almost beyond reproach. Static port, text is nice and clear and legible, panel lines are all nicely done. Look at that. The attention to detail is stunning. Now, I'll be honest, they started from a pretty good grounding with the previous version. That was a lovely aircraft, and the X-Plane version was nice as well, but this is mind-blowing. Yeah. Bit of an anomaly there, flickering graphics, but it's not really a massive issue, is it? detail on that. On the undercarriage leg. And that is one hefty bit of engineering and one stunning bit of 3D modelling in there. Look at all the pipe work. And how fine the detail is coming down here. All the nuts and bolts. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying much because I'm pretty lost for words, to be honest. It is a beast of an aircraft. An absolute beast of an aircraft size-wise, isn't it? And this was in the early days of the sort of first large ETOPS jets. So the 767 and this kind of going head to head. I don't know if they were or weren't properly, but as I say, the flaps obviously drooping because there's no... are they flaps or are they inner ailerons? I think they're inner ailerons, aren't they? Yeah, they're the inner ailerons. So these aircraft have inner ailerons and outer ailerons because their wings flex and bend and twist. And it can cause control reversals, so at high speed they just use the inner ones. But what an absolute beauty. And as I say, look at the staining and the texturing. It's a work of art. It really is a work of art. So what we'll do is we'll have a closer look up top, as it were. So just click that. And then this gives us the chance to have a look from a higher level. Now this is default livery. But look at it. I love this livery. This thing is great. So in terms of the gross sort of anatomy of it, it looks absolutely fantastic. They have modelled this to an extremely high level, and it's very difficult to be anything other than impressed. It's just gorgeous. The rain gutter there. Is that 3D? Let me just slow the camera down. It's not that one. It's up here. Camera. External. Is it showcased, do we think? Drone, here we go, drone. Drone speed, let's slow that down a little bit. And the drone rotation speed can slow down a little bit as well. That's a bit better, isn't it? So yeah, even the 3D, even the rain gutter here is modelled in 3D. All the panels look nice and tidy. Great use of curvature. As I say, my frames are 63 to 75 at the minute. Glazing looks great. All down here just looks fantastic. 3D strip on the radome. It's just... it's very difficult to find fault with this thing. It really is. This sort of area is normally somewhere where you get some challenges for the 3D modelling, but this is looking great. And likewise, if you zoom in or move in, you can see text is clear and legible. Something for me that's important is all the fixings look all the way around. A lot of them are in different orientations, so it shows they've paid attention rather than just doing a slap and chop element on it. Top of the pylons. I mean, this thing is massive, isn't it? Obviously there's bigger aircraft, but this area down here looks horrendous to try and model. They've done a really nice job, haven't they? Now you see what I mean here, all the fixings same orientation there. There's use fasteners. I don't know if they would be in real life or not, but just the textures are fantastic. Vortex generators over the top of upper surface of the wing here. They re-energise the air, so when the air is struggling and it's starting to separate from the upper section of the wing, they can re-energise it and prevent separation from the wing. They just look like LED lights, sort of Airbus winglet that you get. Detailed modelling of the flaps, of the high-speed ailerons. Let's go and have a look at the cargo. Wow. Wow. Oh man. To pay that attention to detail, that much attention to detail in here. Now obviously it comes with the passenger version as well. But the cargo one is splendid in its own right. Scoots along here. Look at the cargo deck here. Not quite sure why we've got different sounds there. This is really nicely modelled. And you scoot through here, and you can see the level of detail in terms of the modelling around here is just glorious. Absolutely fantastic. So, having had a look at the outside, let's have a look at the inside. Now, the inside aesthetically looks very very similar to obviously the previous versions. I just want to get rid of this this character in all aircraft, but the cockpit, typical sort of Airbus type of fabrics, etc. But 3D modelling wise, very, very good. I'll be honest, I'm really finding it difficult to find fault with this add-on. Certainly in terms of the aesthetics, the attention to detail in the modelling down here is quite exceptional. Look at this. That's just beautiful. Absolutely fantastic. The lighting is nice as well, but look at this with the fine needle and then the thicker needle. It's just lovely. The complexity that's gone into designing even just the instruments and the instrumentation and the detail is just next level. You can scroll a long way in and the text doesn't really lose any clarity. Look at that. I mean, mind's blown really, isn't it? It really is. Let's have a look. I can't remember if the circuit breakers are modelled at all. I suspect not, given the complexity of the aircraft, but that's no great biggie. It's beautiful. All the logbooks. This camera's doing me head in. It's absolutely beautiful. There's no two textures on the spoiler handle there, and all the wear and tear. They've spent a lot of time looking at the texturing of this thing. It's an amazing piece of work. It really is an amazing piece of work. And as I say, they've not just you know, cut and chopped and copied. It's not a cut and paste job with the things like the engine levers or the engine switches. It looks like a genuine, well-used wear and tear aircraft. Reflections going on in the glass as well, and the glazing. Yeah, it's quite stunning. Quite stunning. So yeah, as you can see, it's really difficult to be. There's not a lot to criticise, basically. There's not a lot of clickable animated stuff. I'm not going to pull the ram air turbine there. But obviously the fact that they've modelled the handle with a little icon means it can be pulled. But I don't want to be messing around resetting it. Obviously you can test the oxygen. And it's a very highly detailed systems operation in this. But before we do that, actually, what we'll do is have a look at the documentation, Inibuilds manual. Let's see just how much we get. I don't want the AI assistance. Close. Let's bring this up. Let's get rid of that. How many pages is it? Where's it got the details of that? I don't know. So there's a bit of information in terms of support and installation notes, and they're not, I wouldn't say they're the most in-depth in their documentation, Inibuilds. What they tend to do is give you clear and concise as opposed to massively in-depth. But a nice introduction, a little bit about the sim, introduction to the cockpit. Now I've got my cockpit set to the legacy style of operating the dials and knobs. Apparently you can use it on the Xbox as well, which maybe that's one of the advantages in terms of being able to stream it, because this would be a pretty yeah, there's a lot to this aircraft. I think checklists are all through the normal systems. Cockpit layout. Yeah. There's not huge amounts in here, I'll be honest. So I don't think we get much in terms of things like performance tables. Oh yeah, it's in the maintenance folder for these things. We might open them up and have a look, have a closer look. Operations and techniques, and these are basically your checklists and your simplified procedures to follow. We'll see if we can break it. That's an interesting one to discuss, the TRP thrust rating panel. But yeah, so you've got, what is it, 46 pages in the manual, and I would suggest that it's more about the add-on than necessarily going that much in depth with the systems of the aircraft in terms of the manual. Now what I would say is that although the manual, shall we say, is a bit light on a lot of the information about the systems, the actual aircraft isn't. So what we'll do is we'll just get some of those covers open. Hopefully we'll go to aircraft maintenance. In fact, let's just zoom in a little bit, and you can see that the aircraft's got a maintenance setup within it. So you can replace the tyres, replace the brakes. The brakes will overheat if you're heavy on them. Service the APU, service the engines, service the hydraulics, reset emergency slides, which I have done. I've had to do that because I've set them off accidentally. And then maintenance panels, which you can open those, and then again we've got the information down here in terms of what you're doing. So I don't know, I've seen the pictures of it. So what we'll do is we will service the APU, service the engine, service the engine, service the hydraulics, and let's see what happens outside. Do we get any of those nice pictures? I don't know how to get the pictures up that are on the website with the engine cowlings open. Do I get to click them? Is there somewhere where I can click them and open them? Ah, my bad. The engine cowlings only open on the GW engines, and we've got Pratt & Whitneys in this aircraft, which is a shame. But obviously we can have a look at them in the other airframe, not a problem at all. But obviously what you'll see is that it comes up with the, if you want to finish early, you can finish early. So let's have a look at the EFB and what it contains then. So my flight bag is the usual thing where you can set up your initial flight. Obviously it links in with SimBrief, and SimBrief being free, I don't really these days know why you wouldn't have SimBrief. Now this doesn't link in, to the best of my knowledge, with the default flight planner in the system, but as I say, SimBrief being free, it's no great onus to go and sign up for an account and get yourself an excellent free flight planner with lots more on top. But as I say, this doesn't link in with the default flight planner within the sim. But as you can see, I've set out Gatwick to Edinburgh with the various bits and bobs here. You can go into the checklist here if you wish, but I'm not going to go into that. How do I get out of that? Close, there we go. You can import from SimBrief, which obviously we've already done, and you can view the flight plan, which will give you the flight plan image there. And is it? Yeah, you just click and drag to do it. But I'll use my SimBrief, which is on the other monitor, because I just find it easier. So back to the front. Ground equipment is pretty straightforward. You've got your own pushback, which I find to be quite useful. Me and GSX are not friends, we don't get on, but you've also got the ability to arm the doors, disarm the doors, and close all doors there. Weight and balance, this is fantastic. This is the style of weight and balance. Humanitarian charter, postal freight, and then finally at the bottom right you've got SimBrief custom cargo. You can obviously set it up if you want to do custom cargo. You can set up your own figures. Racing team charter, set up your own figures if you wanted to do that, or if you go to SimBrief, you can then update from SimBrief. Takeoff is all your takeoff data calculations. We'll come back to that when we're setting those up. Landing is exactly the same, but trying to get down on Earth without smashing into it. Maintenance we've briefly mentioned, but basically you can replace the tyres, the brakes, the service, the APU, engines, etc. And the aircraft does have persistent state in terms of maintenance. So if you keep stamping on the brakes, your aircraft will respond in terms of your tyres and brakes. En route map, if you wanted it, this is quite beneficial. Oh, hello, what's going on here? Let's zoom out a bit, see if that makes a difference. No, something's not quite right here. Never mind. Navigraph, if you have a Navigraph account, you can connect it here to get the charts. Throttle calibration, I'll be honest, I'm quite idle, so I literally just have it to idle and toga. You can set it with other positions if you wanted, because you can have reversers on axis, but I tend not to do that because I'm a simpleton. So aircraft settings, IRS align time, I have it as instant because I'm impatient. Rudder controls, I've started using a tiller. Now it's actually the slider that's on the side of my Thrustmaster Warthog, so it's not in this right orientation, so it goes up and down, whereas obviously we want to turn left and right. But I'm trying to teach myself with my movements as to my sort of brain eye hand coordination to do that. But you can set your thrust reduction and acceleration altitudes, realistic fueling, yes, although I've just sped it up. Linked instruments, I'm lazy again, so I have all. I have metric for my weight units. On-screen keyboard is enabled, which doesn't make that much difference to me. You can change your maintenance mode, so you can disable it. I've got it on set to realistic, although being an impatient bugger, I'm going to put it on fast. You can change your cockpit settings and your audio volumes down here. All very good. So, without further ado, let's try and get this bird into the air, or get it fired up to the point where we can set ourselves off. So, let's close a few doors up, and you'll hear some noises as that goes. Close that door as well. Remove the stairs. We'll leave the GPU on because obviously we need that. And we will look at getting some power. So before we go any further, let's just check a few things. So the engine switches are off, throttle's closed. Where's my gear? Gear is over here somewhere. Flaps are up and corresponding to outside. Gear is up here showing down. And so at that point I'm going to come up to the overhead and just pop some power on. So the power is up here, electrical power. It's very sort of early Airbus this. Well, it is early Airbus. It's one of their first aircraft. I'm not sure if this or the 310 was first, but I think it was the A300. This is the latter version of the A300. There was an earlier version which I think had more steam gauges in it. But as you can see, we've got 3 batteries up here, so we'll turn the batteries on, and the sounds in this are fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And where's Bing? We'll have a look down here at, we've got nothing coming up here yet. So we'll pop some external power on and things start to come to life. And then as things warm up, we'll be able to start to look in detail at the gauges, etc. But the sounds, immediately, the sounds are just fantastic in this thing. Now this is kind of a really fascinating transition time. So it's kind of during that period of transition between the electronic flight systems that we now know and love and the older stuff where it was steam gauge. And if you look at the 757, the 767, the Airbus 300, they're all very similar. They've all got a mix of steam gauges and electronic flight instrumentation systems. And it's fascinating because that transition between the two, there's also sort of this element, if you read about stuff at the times, there's this emerging technology, and there was, you know, lots of people who were still in the die-hard or on the needles camp, and others who were erring towards this, and quite often what you find is they had the electronic stuff backed up by mechanical stuff. Fascinating time of change in aviation, in the airline. It's really, really interesting. But what you'll see is there was a new design ethos came in compared to Boeing. So if I just pop up here, you'll see we're more into the Airbus. Now this is early Airbus, obviously, but you'll see a lot of it is the dark cockpit principle. So if you turn something on, it will go out if it's in normal operation. Turn it off, it will indicate that it should be on for normal use, and if there's a fault, you'll see it come up with the amber light like it does there. So this is the early steps of the dark cockpit principle, and if you compare this to, say, a 737, the panel layout is much more organised. So you can see all the way back here, we've got our inertial reference systems up here. Being a long-haul aircraft, it's got triple IRSs. And then you've got the various panels as you come down. So it's a fascinating setup. So you've got electrical power here, you've got your fueling panel here, slightly different layout to the modern Airbuses where you've got strips for each one, and then you've got ancillaries on the left and right. This is more akin to, say, what you'd have with a 757 or a 767, where you have panels are blocks. But it's a fascinating period for aviation in terms of civil aviation. There's a few, not gotchas, but there's a few things in here that are idiosyncratic with this aircraft, and where it's not necessarily the same as you would have in other aircraft. And I'm talking predominantly about things like setting the V2 speed, that kind of thing, which we will address as we go through. But as you see, if you like, the operation and the function is what followed on to the Airbus A320 and that period of Airbus. But this is still that early mix between, if you like, it's almost like a Boeing-esque Airbus. I hate to say that, but it is. So you can see the differences in terms of architecture. It's still got this idea that it's got in the modern aircraft, the more modern A320, where you've got the line drawings show where the power goes, for example, so that the schematics are available to the crew just instantly where you see it there. We can pop the galley power on it just whilst we're here. But obviously it's a fascinating period where we've got this sort of interesting variation between the two. Engine start panel, for example, is very different to a modern Airbus being up here as opposed to on the pedestal. So yeah, it's just fascinating. We'll stick some nav and logo lights on while we're here. But yeah, for me, let's just arm that whilst we're here. If you pull it through to disarm, or there's one of these, I can't remember which switch it is, it sets off the slide, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you've got to reset that. But yeah, it's a fascinating blend of what we know now in the Airbus and what happened before. And you see a similar thing, in the, as I say, in the 7.5 and the 7.6 with the cockpits, with the mix of mechanical instrumentation and electronic instrumentation. Fascinating, fascinating period. But did I put these on? No, just pop these on. I don't know if there's a specific order these should go on, but we'll risk it. So we know we've got stuff in the aircraft, so what we'll do is we'll have a look at the MAG. And the MAG, again, this is something where you can see it harks back to some of the old stuff with instead of having your radio tuning panel that you'd have within the MAG these days, you've got individual external controls, and it's very similar to the 737 Classic these are. And again, you've got, this is very Airbus-esque in its appearance, but it's obviously monochrome as opposed to the colour that we see these days. There's a little bit of a bleed through here, but I think it's actually deliberate. I think this is just the way the panel is. But yeah, so it's got some elements where it just looks Boeing. But yeah, and there's random switches, so GPWS landing, slats and flaps over here if it's different landing criteria. Just absolutely fascinating. So what we'll do is we'll pop a route in. Where's my sim brief gone? Here it is. It's not a particularly challenging route. Just clear that message. Nav accuracy downplated, weights cleared, and then we're going to go from KK to EGBH. Pop that in there. And what are our flight details? So, got it next to me. The cost index is 100. And it's just literally a case of filling in the details. Cost index is 100. Flight level is 340. That's quite high for just doing that run. 340. We haven't really got a company route, and the flight ID will put us contract. Contract 42 Charlie. In fact, that's wrong. Maybe R. Charlie. So we'll pop that in there as the flight ID. So that's all pretty good. Same sort of init style as the Airbuses that we know and love from the A320 onwards, same sort of thing. So at this point we'll just pop over to the flight plan and we will build ourselves a flight plan. Can we bring it in from SimBrief? We must be able to, surely. Weight balance, takeoff. I don't think we can, you know. SimBrief. No, we can't. Never mind. We'll just have to do it old schooling. So from here we're going on a departure, so the SID, which is the Lamborn 6 Mike. So Mike, there we go. 26 left, return, that pops that in there, return, SID, Lamborn 6 Mike, 26 left, insert, and you'll notice the inserts on the opposite side to the newer A320s. Come down here, from Lamborn, click on there, we're then going to go on Airway, which is the Lima 10, and you'll see it's more like say the Universal for the CRJ, where it lists the airways rather than you having to type it in like you would do with a Boeing, for example. We're going on the Lima 10. Did I miss that? Ooh, has it not got it? Airways from Lamborn. Lima 10. Oh, so it's not in alphabetical order. That's weird. That is very weird. So the Lima 10, and we're going as far as Brooklands Parkway, BPK. From there, we're going on the Upper November 601. Ventus 601, and that's going up to InPip. So let's just scroll up, look for InPip, there it is. That's in, and finally we're going to do an arrival from InPip, which is going to be, click on Edinburgh, it'll offer us a star, which is the InPip 1 Echo. Now we're going into 2.4, ILS 2.4. You'll notice, in fact, let me just return that star. So InPip 1 Echo, and it's the ILS 2.4 we're doing, and no transition, not going to be a tailor. Return, and hopefully, I keep getting this wrong. Star, InPip 1 Echo, ILS 2.4, transition none, there we go, insert. Right, let's scroll through this. Make sure there's no discontinuities. And there are none. That's most marvellous. So, that's in. Having done that, we'll pop back to the other page of initialisation. Next page. And you see it's got this weird mix. It's got the Airbus arrows and then the Boeing next page, but it hasn't got previous page. A bit weird, but next page, what's our block fuel? Where did we say? Block fuel was 13.0. The zero fuel weight was, in fact, let's take that off the actual aircraft. Where's the zero? Zero fuel weight is 118.7. 118.7. Should give us a takeoff gross weight, and the zero fuel weight CFG. Zero fuel weight CFG. Mean aerodynamic chord zero fuel weight percentage 30.03. So 30 point, I don't think we'll do 0.3, but we'll try. Won't will it? Yeah, it's close enough, it doesn't work. So having put all that back in, we've done our initialisation. That we need to do our performance, and instead of showing the perf button, it comes up with takeoff approach. And the first strange anomaly, as you'll see next to V2, it's got FCU, which means it's set by the flight control unit, which is in the overhead, in the mode, what we now refer to as mode control panel. But we can set our V1 and VR, so let's just see what we've got for that. Let's go back and go to takeoff, and we can sync the weather. Are we going off 08? Right, we're not. We're going off 26 left. Runway 26 left. And now we can check the config, flaps 1515, which is an interesting one, so we'll talk about that in a bit. Air conditioning's on, anti-ice off, force toggle off, calculate, and it'll come up with our speeds over here. And flex 63 it reckons. I'm not going to flex, but I will take the other speeds for what they are. So 47, 47, 50, 147, 147, 150. Just keep that in the back of your minds for later on. And CFG weight is 32. Gross weight CFG 32.2. Takeoff shift, we're not going to have takeoff shift. In fact, it hasn't got any CFG information here for us, has it? Trimmable horizontal stabiliser 0.2 down, but it hasn't got anything to put in the takeoff page here in the perf. So mode, you know, I didn't check if we need to run the IRS anyway. Didn't check. Let's have a look. Menu. FMSA cars. Yeah, request sim brief. We'll request the winds while we're here. AOC wind update. Clear. You can request sim brief. We didn't request sim brief, obviously, but it's one of those things. It's a common thing. But we've got such a short route today, it shouldn't really be that much of an issue. Back to menu and FMS. There's not really much in the way of menu options, so just one thing to be aware of. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to set off my takeoff data page here, and Chummy Boy is going to set up the flight plan legs here, and there we go. And we can see all our stuff's aligned now. What we're going to do is just have a look at the overhead and get ourselves ready. So all I'm looking for really is to make sure that the system's aligned over here. It says it is, but I just want to visually check that. Come down here and make sure that all the systems that we need on are on. So don't need that. I'll stick those on, stick that on. Coming over here, the strobe beacon's going to go on because we're going to start engines in a moment. Those two are important because that's what allows you to set your V2, and these are the pitch trim switches. Down here you've also got your auto throttle switches, so there's two of those, and your yaw dampers. We don't need those on at the moment. Working our way back, all looks good, all looks good. Further information about your main landing gear up here. Look, greens for your down locks, which is not something you normally see. You see your gear up and your gear down, and potentially your gear travelling, but you don't normally see that the down locks are in situ, which is nice. There's a lot of fuel tanks on this thing, so it's a good thing being there, but it manages them for you. And then your trim tanks as well, which shift fuel forwards and backwards. All of this we're going to leave, apart from this we'll put onto engine start ignition alpha for engine start. APU, we're going to need to start that. So this is another odd one because you've got a master switch as well before you can start it. I'll put the fuel pump on as well. The fuel pump's automatic by the looks of things, but you can override it. But really, really nice. Nice little things like it's got a deactivated sticker down here for the washers. All looking pretty good. We will stick these on. These are the window heaters and chrome heat. The window heaters are quite important because at the altitude you fly at, if you get hit by a bird and the windows, well, if you get hit by a bird and the windows are cold, which obviously doesn't take too much here if you're in certain parts of the world, or an object hits the windows, what it does is, although the windows are laminated, it's not just a case of stopping things going through, it stops them shattering by heating them, so that's one of the things for that. And turn the crew and cockpit oxygen on, and that looks pretty much. And I really do like the way that they do their image in terms of, for example, if I let me the switches here, manual. You can change your crossfeed and your bleeds over here. So it says it's available. So coming back up to our electrical panel, I'm now looking for my external power and my APU generator. That's on. I keep forgetting it's like modern Airbus logic, so we should be able to turn that off without everything shutting down. You know you've done it wrong if everything just goes dark, which is quite often the case for me. And then we just need to find our air switch, which is over here. APU bleed air is on. And I do love the way it does this with it lighting up and changing the lights. Very nice, very nice, very nicely done. So coming back down here, we're going to get rid of the ground equipment now. Is the door closed? Yeah, door's closed. It's just about trying to figure out this. So remove GPU, we will arm all doors. You can see it goes red, it gives you a clue down here, emergency slides arm goes red. Right, let's come back up here. Just sort that out. And all the lights are correct for that. We've got the APU bleed on, master switches are done. All ready to go. APU is available. All that looks fine. We've got the lights done, beacons on, yeah. So we're going to do our own pushback. Let me just have a look on here on Navigraph, and let's have a look at what we're doing in terms of pushback. We're going to push back nose to the right. Right, let's see if I can actually get it going the correct way. That's all alright for the moment. I'm not type rated on this aircraft, so please excuse if I'm doing a bit of simisms here. Get rid of those just because we can. I wish I could just get rid of it. I hate it. Hate it. Have you detected that I hate it? Ooh, we haven't mentioned this actually while I'm here. There is an ACAR system now. This down here, it's easier to do on this side because you haven't got the parking brake handle. This McDo for the ACARs. So you can do air operators stuff, pre-flight, en route, post-flight, receive messages, weather, free text, etc. We haven't used it on this actually. Or you've also got CPDLC, which is the automated stuff in terms of filing flight plans, etc. We haven't done anything of that today. My fault, I forgot about it. But obviously you can do your CDLC login, ATC log reports if you wanted to send messages or requests, etc. So I'll be honest, it's not something I've used before much as a system, so please forgive me for that, but it is there should you wish to use it. And then, as I say, it's got the AOC stuff for the usual pre-flight, en route, etc. So we should have filled this in really. Which is, yeah, it's my bad. Any received messages, no messages. So you can do weathers and ATIS and that sort of thing. We might just quickly do a weather forecast. I'll do a weather forecast for EGPH, and we'll get a TAF. See what we get with that. Click send, and we'll see what we've requested. TAFs from both. So we'll see what we get, see if we get a message. It's got click to return, it won't let me return anywhere. So, but as you can see down here, you've got the McDo menu, you've got the ACARs up there, and it's not something, as I say, I'm overly familiar with. Your radio page is down here by the way as well, so this is an important one. So just pop the radios down here as well. So if you're struggling with where to tune your radios, it's got your transponder here, so we will put 2000 in there, and we'll turn it to TARA. I think that means it's on TARA, TA only, altitude on, altitude off, standby. TARA, I would have thought that means that's the active one. And then you've got your two ADFs down here as well, ADF 1 and 2, and then COM1, COM2. So if you're struggling with where that is, it's down here. We got there eventually. So let's get ourselves pushed and started. So I'm not that great with this push and start on this one. Pushback. Cargo lighting, by the way, you can change the cargo bay lighting if you wished. So let's go backwards. We'll probably have to, the tug comes roaring in at a great rate of knots. I love the fact that things like the hydraulic surfaces, when they've got no pneumatic hydraulic power, they're quite low down. Sound of that APU is lovely as well. So this is obviously their own stuff. There we go. That looks like he's clunked it into place. Oh, that's quite quick, isn't it? Right, let's see which way is left and which way is right. That's the way we want. I'm just going to have to judge this by eye. Hang on. Straight, please. See how we get on. And we'll just YOLO it and start a turn now. See how we get on. It's quite a tight turn, that, isn't it? not going to be a million miles off, are we? Let's jump back into the cockpit to stop it though. What we'll do is we'll gauge when we're in line with the front. We're not a million miles off, I'll accept that. Oh god. Stop, there we go. Pop the wheel brakes on. And then we'll go back to the takeoff page here. And then... Come on, Richard. Nav accuracy upgraded, that's fine, that's nothing to worry about. Up here, and let's get some stuff started. So, slightly different to the usual Airbus fare in terms of starting, as I say, slightly different switches. The manual modes, if you wanted to go to the manual modes, you can go up here, but we're all fine. So we're going to start the right engine first, so click start there. It goes to open, come down here, and then it should be firing up, and it is down here with the N2. Lovely old style gauges. You do also have your gauges here for your engine oil and pressures, etc. As I say, this is very sort of the CRT effect here as well is very nice. That's all we're going to get to, I think. So come down here, click that on, come back up here just to monitor it. N2 rising, N1's showing. EGT, we're waiting for that now. Make sure it doesn't go off the boil. And N2 stable at about 40%, rising slowly. EPR is an interesting one. There's certain ways you can set aircraft performance. So EPR is engine pressure ratio, so it's the difference between the pressure basically ahead of the engine and output of the engine. So it gives you an indication of the engine's performance. You could also use EGT as a performance gauge for setting engines. Likewise, N1 is another one that we would use. But potentially EPR or EPA is not really that much used now. It used to be Rolls-Royce engines more than anything else who used to use that. But, it's just another means of assessing the engine performance. So let's go up to the overhead and we'll start number 1. Open. That means it will start to spin up, and you can see the N2 is rising. The N1's rising slowly. Let's just have a look outside. See what it looks like. Sounds are great. See it's starting to increase in speed. And I'm guessing at this point going to need some fuel in. 21%, yeah, let's get some fuel in. Let's just pop outside. Lovely. Sounds on this thing are great, and it does look like the front fan, the main fan, is blurring, but you can see the stuff behind. Really nice. As you can see now, the hydraulics are pressurised. Everything's sorted itself out. Absolutely fantastic. Right. What we're we've got a master caution for. Your dampers etc. are all off, that's expected. So we're just going to mention now, in fact what we'll do is get rid of the APU now. So APU, everything else looks fine, we're not expecting anything to go bang, but what we'll do is just get rid of the APU. So that can go to continuous relight, and then the APU can just go off, and we also need the APU air off, which is over here. And then that cross feed should close, which it does, and then what it's got to be in a... that was weird. Weird click spot effect over there. Oh dear. Something's going on with the viewpoint and the click spots there, but we'll stick the auto throttle system on. That's probably reset this. Which reminds me, what did we have as the speed? 150 was it? Yeah, 150. So this is where you set your V2, and if you remember down here, it's still at 100, it says FCU, so you've got to set it on the FCU. So over here, and we're just going to set this to 150. We need to select our altitude for our initial departure altitude, which it's got constraints. So what we will do is we'll put constraints on the screen here, and let me see, so let's bring this over. We'll just have a quick mention of this. So here's my Navigraph charts, Lamborn 6 mic, and transition altitude 6,000, that should be okay. Coming off here, 4,000, 4,000, 4,000, 5,000, and then up to 6,000. So between 1,500 and 4,000 feet, all the way around to a bit above 3,204, below 4,000, and then below 4,000 at 5,000. So that's a weird one. Just stay below 4,000 at that point. Then we're up to 5,000. At 5,000, left-hand turn, 6,000. Not going to necessarily do it fully as maybe an airline pilot would do it, but we're going to do it to the best of our abilities. Expect close-in obstacles. Expect first CP, DLC, data link, authority to be EDTT. That's fine because we're not using that. Yeah. So that's our routing. Basically, hang a right, lots of altitude changes, hang a left, and that's basically going to be the initial part of our route. And we'll talk about the arrival closer to the time. But get rid of that. So our initial altitude is 4,000 really. Altitude select is going to be 4,000. Heading select is going to be, we'll just put it onto the approximate heading of where we're going. And we're going off runway 26 left, so let's put this onto 260. Oh, of course I've gone the wrong way, haven't I? Where have I? Oh, it's got nice rate of acceleration there. So that's an approximation, just in case we have an issue with our autopilot. And this is very Boeing-esque in the autopilot appearance. If you look at it in terms of compared to a modern Airbus, for example, you've got very similar switches. Oh, that reminds me, you've got two settings that you can put on your speed. So you've got your first one, and then I think it's if you pull back, is it, or push forward? There we go. And then you can preset your next speed, which for us we'll put it as 250 because we've got no other speed constraints. Let me just double check. Have we got any speed constraints on the departure? Yeah, max 220. So we'll set it to 220, and then 250 after 29 miles from Detling. So we'll set it to 220. There we go. So what we can do now is it's exactly the same as, say, a Boeing in terms of the appearance for this, but we want profile, which is basically VNAV, and we want nav, which is LNAV basically. Those two modes, and then we're going to taxi out, stick our auto throttles and whatnot on, and go for it. So Take that off. The first thing we're going to assess is the ground handling. Sounds glorious. Seems to steer nicely on the ground. Let me just get this over here so I can get my taxi chart up. And we're going to go round to the left here. It's got a bit of weight to the aircraft, just need a little bit of throttle to get it going. The actual controls are nice. I'm probably turning a bit too tight given the size of the aircraft that we are, but she handles really nicely on the ground for the size of what she is. Picks up speed quite quickly with a low throttle setting. Steers nicely and accurately on the ground. You get a sense of the elevation of the aircraft with this. Really do. Which is good. It's really nice that you get that. The impatient of us will keep going. Now I'm getting 60-62 frames per second. This is payware scenery for Gatwick. It's from Inibuilds themselves as well. It's really, really nice. Got no complaints with the scenery, and the if I was in 2020, the scenery, I can't steer. If I was in 2020, I think the frame rate would have tanked by now. I seem to get much better frame rates in 2024 than I do in 2020. But we're going to continue down to Papa looking at this, and then we'll come in at Papa. So, but yeah, what a lovely, lovely setup. So, follow this down. Yeah, it looks lovely, doesn't it, the scenery? KLM over there. Don't know what's going on with my views, but what's that sign for? I'm not sure if that's us. We can go one more, it's not going to cause us a problem, but no, this is the one we want. No, it's not. No, it's not. Hang a right at the next one. Here we go. This is where we want to be. Whoa! Cart just suddenly appeared as if by magic. Slow ourselves right down for the turn. Just let the nose run into the turn a bit because of the size we are. This is where we want to be though. A little bit of a stutter there, although we're still at 66 frames a second, so you can see the frame rates up in the top right here. Alright, we just hold ourselves here. Now the aircraft's got momentum, so that took a little bit to stop. It didn't stop suddenly on the brakes. It took a little bit to stop, which is nice. Very, very nice. So one last check before we go. Profile, nav, auto throttles. Not the autopilot. The auto throttles are on. Let's just check. Everything else on there's up there. No lights causing any difficulties. So I'm not type rated on this thing. I don't think there would be many these days. Let's set that. I'm assuming. Let's set flaps. The flaps are interesting because it's got a split. Thrust rating panel. That's what I needed to do. So you can see it separates slats and flaps. So we said it's going to be 15-15 for takeoff. So 15 degrees flaps, 15 degrees slats. It's fascinating because you can have it as, you know, you can see the differences between slats and flaps, and then the slats stay at 15, but they've got a 30 setting for the slats, plus 40 for the flaps. I mean, that's big old barn door status, that is, but let's make sure everything down here looks good, and then we'll just go back to the thrust rating panel. So the thrust rating panel is something you don't see much of these days, but you've got a very similar thing on, for example, the Avro RJ, for example. You've got a thrust rating panel. You can select different modes, so toga, max continuous thrust, climb and cruise are the general modes that you could look at. You can also look at a flex temperature, where if you go flex to it, then allows you to change the flex temperature. We did have one for this, but we're not going to use it. And then you can set it to auto. We're going to set it to toga. Well, in fact, no, should we set it to auto? And then you'll see the thrust limit up here is actually by, so it's gone to limit mode is toga, but you can see the thrust limit is here, the red triangles, so it's set it by EPA, and that's what it's going to set the power by. So we've got auto throttle. So now I'm assuming down here there is a config button. Config button. Data speed, condition. No, I can't see a config button. If anybody knows if there is a config button, let me know. Although what we will do is we will put the radar on as well. System 2, auto. It's interesting, there's no predictive wind shear there either, is there? Well, I can't see a config button, which is interesting. Takeoff config test. Didn't get any scary alarms. Just check the flight controls. Full left, full right, neutral, full back. In fact, if I come down here, we're down here. So full left, full right. In fact, that's the wheels, not the flight controls. You galah. Flight controls. Oh, another interesting one is in terms of the systems. You've got separate AC and DC here. Look, for the synopsis, which is different to these days. You get everything on one page. So, yeah, that's kind of cool, isn't it? Where's it gone? Flight controls. Flight controls. There we go. Flight controls. So, full left, centre, full right. You can see the delay in terms of the system dimming when you take the controls out, which is fascinating. Full up, full down, centre, full left, rudder down here, full right, centre, and then, yeah. So it's all looking good. Having said that, have I set the trim? Have I heckers like? What was our trim? 0.2 down. .2 down. Something about there, I'd have thought. So, after that prolonged hold there, stick strobes on. Runway turn off lights, not going to use those. Didn't use our taxi light, that's because of bit of power. A little bit stuttery, but that's obviously going to be the scenery. I was watching somebody the other day, they were streaming, I think it was the FS Labs A300 or A320, sorry. I think they were struggling with stuttering as well. Let's make sure we are fully lined up. Make sure the engine is stable and matched. Now that's very blurry, that might be a sim issue, but that speed tape's very blurry there. Very sensitive on the nose wheel steering. That's a shame about that blurriness. I think that's going to be my settings as opposed to the aircraft, but V1, rotate. Gears coming up. Auto throttle, and we'll plug the autopilots in now and see how she does. And you see the speed's disappeared now because she's on auto throttle. She's going to fly the profile and nav is fine. Just being mindful of not overspeeding the flaps and looking for a turnaround to the right in a minute now. There we go. Lovely bit of lighting. And what we'll do is we'll try and do a manual approach at the end, just so that we can figure out the handling that way. But I'm disappointed that the sim's a bit stuttery at the moment. And look at that, it's controlling the speed to 20 exactly as we wanted it to. And levelling at 4,000 exactly as we wanted to. It's a lovely, lovely thing. Now what I haven't done is I haven't gone to it in terms of in-depth, haven't tried things like step asides or anything like that in terms of use of the flight management system. But this is fantastic. Clouds are nice. I do like the clouds in the new sim. Very nice indeed. Now we've got profile, but I'm just going to give it the permission to go up to 5,000 and see whether it actually climbs or not. No, it doesn't. So it's got the permission to go up to 5,000 after the next constraint. I can't remember whether we need to press the button or not for it to tell it to actually action it. We'll just expand our range scale a little bit as well. But let's have a look. You can see I've got the constraints on here as well. So in the magenta, so we've got the speed constraints here. But we've met our first constraint over 2,300. Sorry, 3,200 because we're at 4,000. Got to be below 4,000 for this one and the next one. Where the next one we can speed up to 250. We'll see what it does at the next one because I want to see how good it is at following its constraints. Actually, what I'll do is I'll put it up to 6,000 and see if it levels at 5 at the next constraint. But these are drawn beautifully. One of the options actually is to change how this is. So this is the more modern style with a curve. but the older A300s didn't have that. They would have like quite an abrupt angle. It would fly what we've got drawn here as the curve, but I've got the more modern setting. But that's one of the options you can do in terms of your options for your setup. So we're just approaching the second one. Is it going to climb automatically? Do you see a little bit of flickering on the instrument, which I think is lovely. Just really brings that aesthetic to it. So we seem to be past that constraint. Are we still on profile? Yeah. No. That's why, because it went into altitude hold. Wanted to go up to 5,000 and stop there. And I think it's going to do that because when you look at the little blue arrow for top of climb, it's quite close to us. That sound of the engines is great. It's also accelerating to 250, which is what it should be doing. Slightly different way it shows things in terms of the altitude here. It's not so much on an altitude tape. See how well it captures this levelling off, but it's obviously capturing 5,000. It's not going to continue to 6,000, so it is managing the constraints, which is great. Absolutely fantastic. This is a SID I often use for seeing if an aircraft's VNAV is any good. But we're back to altitude, so I suspect we'll have to press profile again. Yeah, the profile's gone out. So every time we have a step climb, it's asking for permission to continue the climb. If I press profile in advance, it doesn't climb. Oh no, it's gone up to 6,000, doesn't it? It's gone up to 6,000 already. That's a shame. So I got that one wrong. Should only be at 5,000. It's gone all the way to 6,000. That's a shame. I didn't quite nail that. I was getting all excited there. Never mind, we've bust that altitude. But at the end of the day, it's a sim. Oh, we're already on 1013, so that's happy days. Profile speed, profile altitude, nav. Happy days. So, what I'll do at this point is I'm just going to put it up to our cruise altitude, which was 34,000 feet. So let's just put it up to 34,000 feet, and I will see you in a bit. And instead of profile, although it's on profile but it's climbing, that's interesting. It shouldn't be climbing if it's following the profile. To the best of my knowledge, it should be following the constraints, so it's obviously ignoring them. Okay, well, that's no problems. Well, I'll see you in a bit when we're in the descent and towards the arrival, and we'll have a look at its arrival and its landing. So, see you shortly. Okay, so as you join me again, guys, you can see we've got the top of descent's just come in, just short of 70 odd miles away. So we're going to look at setting up for the descent. So a couple of things I'm going to do. I'm just going to make sure that I have my decision height in, which is 200 feet, because we're doing a Cat 1 ILS, I should say. Pre-selected my altitude to go down to 26,000 feet, and that is because if I bring this over and bring this down, you'll see that at INPIP we need to be at flight level 260, then 200, and what we're going to do is I'm going to leave it to its own devices in terms of managing the descent. The reason being is that when I've done previous flights, I've found that it's not great at it. So what we want to see is how it's going. As an aside, I've also in the MAG, I've put as a reference point, not in there, where's it got, progress as a reference point, we've got India Tango Hotel, which if I bring this back over again, you'll see that India Tango Hotel is used as the DME arc for the approach, but we probably won't fly the DME arc. We'll probably just fly it as vectors, self positioning with vectors. So we'll see how that goes on. But just in case, I've got that prepared, and obviously I've also got the approach in here. So if I go back up here, if I flick this switch up here, I can choose whether I want it to display me information about the landing system, the navigation equipment, i.e. the MAG, or if I want to flag up the VORs. And you can see here I've got the VORs now, and the VOR that I've got selected there needs to be 113.8. So let's see what we've got here, 113.8. Although it's potentially self-tuning as well. It's coming up Teller. That's certainly useful for us, and it will tell us the position in relation to Teller if we should so choose. But I'm just going to knock this back to nav, and you see it blanks out the VOR again, blanks out the VOR and course, and then goes back to the VORs it was tuning. So we've got the option to do that. Now, if I remember rightly, this is the same as the later Airbuses. You need to give it permission to go down. Now, one of the things of an Airbus of this age, or indeed any airliner of this age, is that they struggle to go down and slow down at the same time. But I want to see what its profile is going to give us when we go by its indications here. So just looking at everything else looks pretty clear. It's just the altitude select that we need to worry about at the moment, and then we'll have a quick chat once we're in the descent about the stages we want to get at in terms of the profile for the descent. So the initial descent is down to flight level 260 at INPIP, and as I say, I've had a few issues with this where it's not been particularly great at it captures the altitude, but it's not been particularly great at assessing its descent profile. So this is going to be an interesting one for it. So let's see how it gets on. 18 miles or so to go to top of descent, and I'm sure if I give it the permission to go straight away, then it will do exactly that. But unlike the normal Airbus, I think for the normal Airbus, if you click the top and push it, you give it permission to go down. With this, you have to click profile instead, because if you click the top, it just levels you at that altitude, and you'd see the change here. So if I click it now, no, it doesn't make any difference. Yeah, it's still doing that. But you see, it doesn't make any difference to us initiating an early descent or anything like that. But heading across Scotland, much better day in the sim than it is in real world. It's been foggy as heck. We'll wait till we get within 5 miles, and then we'll give it permission. We've got the constraints selected still, so that should give us an indication as to how we're doing against the profile heights that we're expected to do. Likewise, what we'll do when once we've initiated our descent is we'll look at getting the descent and approach information in. But fundamentally, there's not a lot with this plane. There's less landing information required, it would appear, than the the A320. Right, so we're within 5 miles. What we're going to do is press profile, and you see we've started a descent. And having established that we've started a descent, let's have a look. What are we at? 265, something like that. So I'd expect a 1300 foot a minute rate of descent would be adequate. You can see the vertical deviation here was slightly low, and judging by that, we're continuing to go lower than the profile. Now, for me, that's not necessarily a problem at this point because we haven't got any ground below that I'm worried about, and we're not playing around with ATC, so there's nothing below us that's going to affect our flight. But what we'll do is we'll come over here. So runway at Edinburgh that we're using is 24. Select runway 24, sync with the weather. That's given all the details there, and conditions dry. Config will go 30-40, manual braking. No, we'll go auto low. Yeah. And then calculate. Landing distance. Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll go with that. We'll see how we get on. Vertical deviation. We're now back onto our proposed descent path, it would appear. Disappeared off up here, and now it's perfect. Bit weird. We've only spent 30 seconds away and all of a sudden it's fixed itself. You can see our bottom of descent coming here. Let's increase our range a little bit, see what's going on in the world. It's managed it nicely, it would appear. It's figured it out for itself. All very good. And then after that we've got to descent to 200. This is going to be the interesting one because at ESCO, which is 9.8 miles after that 200 limitation, we're both descending to flight level 70 and we've got a max speed of 250 at ESCO, which I think is in here in the flight plan. ESCO, yeah, speed limit's there, 200, look. Now if you look at our profile, it says we're on profile, but it says we're going to level out just after INPIP. So we'll monitor that. Expecting 26. 27, we've got 1,000 to go. You can see it coming in now at 260. Now I'm actually going to, because we're going to be there or thereabouts, I'm actually going to continue down to 200. Going to give it permission to go down to that. I'll see if it levels off. And I don't think it's going to. No, that's good. So we're now going down to 200 in advance of in rev. It's making good work of this descent. The last one I did, it was a bit of a garbage descent. Put some terrain on the radar because we're going to be going down towards high ground. We'll bring this over again. So we are here, we've just passed INPIP going towards in rev at flight level 200. ESCO obviously is the next point, as I say, with the speed limit point max 250. We'll see if it can abide by that. This is where it's going to be difficult because we will be descending and trying to slow down, and it's not easy in older jets. In fact, modern jets, they're not always the greatest at trying to slow down and go down. You've got a lot of weight basically barreling downhill. But this stretch here particularly is one that can catch this aircraft out occasionally. It's one of the reasons why I use this, is you've got a descent and slow down change of speed profile here to get all the way down to 70, which is going to be interesting. The approach itself, we're going to do a direct routing. We're just going to vector ourselves in for 240. We've got all the details set up. This is all looking relatively promising. You can see the constraint for the speed is there. It looks like we're going to get down to 200 in advance. However, it seems to be closing that gap a little, is it? Yeah, we're going to get there. Plenty of time. Nicely done, aircraft. Nicely done. It's just starting to level out a bit. It's got 1,000 feet to go, is it? We've got it to 220, have we? Oh no, we've got it to 2. We need 200. That's my bad. Sorry, plane. We're still going down? No. We need to click profile, That's my bad. Should be fine to get there though. There or thereabouts. Now it needs to be on profile, otherwise it won't capture the speed. And actually I'm going to take this all the way down to 7,000 profile. Vertical speed descent, I don't want that. I want profile. And it's asking for some air brake, so we'll give it some air brake. This is what happened before, it starts to get to the point of going, I can't really do both. You're asking me to do too much. But as I say, I need the profile descent and the profile speed for it to try and capture the 250 and also the descent to 70. The bottom of the descent's just skipped out of view. Let's see where it's going to. Yeah, it's gone all the way out here, look. And we've got some terrain starting to come in with a C. So you need to be getting down to 250, my good friend. It's trying. It is trying, bless it. I think your company would be pretty miffed if you flew an entire descent with full air brake. All your spoilers hanging out. La-di-da. So we've made the 250, that's good, but now what we need to do is make sure that we make our flight level 70. We're on profile. That's all good. Let's see how we're doing with our bottom of descent now. Right, our bottom of descent, that's coming quite nicely. Quite nicely indeed, look. It's just there or thereabouts. It's just, oh, it's running away again. He's got another speed and altitude constraint at Tartan here, look. Ooh, you're on vertical deviation, so please don't extend too far. Just minimise that, we're going to put it on my other screen so I can keep track of where we are. I'll just get some updated weather. What are we on? 11. Have we done our we haven't done our approach page. If we take off arrival 30, you see what I mean about how little information it has. The MDA, we're going to go down to 200, although technically it's not an MDA, it's a decision altitude, or sorry, yeah, a minimum altitude that we're going down to. Yeah, it is a decision altitude technically, but that's a minimum descent altitude. Sorry, it's a decision height we're going down to of 200. Actually, let's put the MDA on, or the decision altitude, which is 300. 300. So just checking the speeds. The approach 121, that's quite low. What I do need to do now is I need to start thinking about the fact I'm going to be self-manoeuvring. So, heading, where's my heading knob here? Here we go. Put it out to the right, because we're probably going to turn right before we then continue down. So just checking through my mental checklist. We've still got the spoiler fully out, we've got our approach in, We've got our, we'll put the landing system on in a moment once we get around the corner, and then we'll look to do the approach. Get some feet on pedals in advance and we'll see how this works. But you can see what we've got is, I'll just bring it out a notch. You can see we've got a really odd turn here. It's drawn it really weirdly, but at the end of the day what it is a very tight, almost 150 degree turn to the left, 120 to 150 degree turn to the left, so we'll be moving ourselves out to the right to kind of cut that off a bit. You see what I mean here? So we're going to bring ourselves and control ourselves out to the right. So we didn't slow down for 230 yet. Let's see what happens. And then after tartan, as I say, we're going to deviate off to the right. We're going to put ourselves into heading. Now we're going to make the height constraint, so the altitude constraint I should say, so we're going to go down all the way down to 3000. Just want to see if it starts to slow down. Yeah, it's lifting the nose to slow down, and because we're getting close to 7,000 it can start to do that. Right, let's do that. Let's go to level change, heading select. It should then turn around to the right. Now the bottom of descent is just before we reach the sea, which is fine. What we'll do is we'll start to bring our speed back as we do so. So the high ground out to our left here. We're flying very heads in, it's not the greatest way to do things. Right, I'm going to get rid of that, set that to that, auto brake set low. You can't do the auto brake now until you've got certain criteria ready to go. We're going to put the ILS system on so we get our landing cues, and then we're going to come out further to the centre fix, further out than the centre fix here. See our bottom of descent is now not too far away from the centre fix, so I'll take that. 3,000 feet, and what was the Q and H actually? We've got the Q and H here? No. So Q and H, my flight, close. What was the Q and H? 1023. That's important because means that we're actually going to be higher than we originally intended, which affects our descent profile. We're still quite quick here, aren't we? Bring our speed back. And it's safe to say this is an aircraft I'm still learning in many respects. But then, you know, it's not the most up-to-date aircraft in a lot of senses. So our landing is over here. Pretty happy with that. Need to get down to 3,000 though. Take a stage of flap, which is going to be spoiler 15. do is we'll basically cut off so we haven't got this blob. Looking to level at 3,000 with like glide slope, so we've got activity already, which is great. This is the sort of thing we really like. We'll take our first stage of flap as well while we're here. $500 to go. Wind farms ahead of us. We're coming back round here. Just about to see the airfield there. At this point we're going to start to bring ourselves round. Aiming for a much better trajectory than was initially set up for us by the sim, or by the planning. Just check we've got auto brakes, got auto spoilers. Happy days. It's going to be quite a sharp join, this actually. Potentially should have gone out a little bit further, but we'll be alright. How are we looking? Yeah, we'll be alright. Well, we seem a long way out, so I'm just going to start to bring us round. Sure if the sim weather matches my weather, as in what I had on sim brief. They do seem quite low. But we'll work with it. That's not what I wanted to do. Neither's that. Pay attention, Richard. That's what we wanted to do. Bring ourselves all the way around here. And actually we've got a localizer coming in there, so I might as well take advantage of that, click on it and get it to chase it, and we'll see how it does. Oh, my self-positioning there is awful. Still on heading, so it wants us to intercept the localizer, so we're not clearly not on a decent enough intercept course for it. I get you. What do you say landing was? Oh, the landing speed's down here, isn't it? 121, so 126. Right, let's put an intercept heading in there. 240 minus 30 goes to about 210. That should get us a nice intercept heading. The altitude's not come in yet, or the vertical element hasn't come in yet. We're still on localizer capture. I haven't gone to approach because I tend to want to try and capture the horizontal element before I capture the vertical. The vertical's coming in, the horizontal's coming in. So on this basis, once we get to that point, I'm going to click there. I'm going to click there, put us into land. It should then capture both. So it's got us as Cat 2, we're doing a Cat 1, localizer is captured. And it's waiting for glide slope speed. Gears going down. Checking the flaps, we're going to 20, going to bring our speed back down. It wanted 126. That seems very slow for such a large aircraft. That's full flap selected. Right, that's doing quite nicely actually. Bit of an abrupt takeover. Try and figure out where it needs me to have the throttles. My speed, because obviously when you take it out of auto throttle, it's not necessarily where you want it to be. I have to say it's very nice to fly. It feels very stable. Come off the gas a little bit. Going low, correcting. A bit more throttle. Not correcting. A bit more power. Correcting slowly. On glide path on localizer. Very nicely, has to be said. Localizer's drifting right. Speed. (1800) altitude. Very nice to fly. Very nice indeed. looks like slightly right. ILS is becoming more sensitive. My ham-fisted efforts are becoming less sensitive. Let's have a look out. We've got nice visibility. Ah, nice. 2 whites, 2 reds. Nice lighting effect. Drifting slightly right. 3 reds. Landing. Slightly off centre line. Very nice indeed. Frame rate's sort of getting a bit stuttery there. Just a little bit stuttery. Just continue to the end. What a lovely aircraft to fly an ILS on. Really, really nice. Really, really nice. Very nice indeed. So we'll taxi in, and as we taxi in we'll have a little chat about what we think. Let's get around this corner so that I'm not walloping into anything. I'll go and find a stand to have a chat. Quite narrow taxiways at Edinburgh, relatively speaking. For an Airbus A300 I'd have thought. Right, let's tidy up. Come off sooner. They're already off. What we will do is we'll pop the APU on as we taxi in. So, let's have a look at it from start to finish. The first thing is, obviously, it's really important that if you're going to buy this, the price I think is really reasonable for what you get. But if you've got the previous version, so whether it's the previous standard version or the enhanced, and you want to go to this level, it's an extra £9.95 plus whatever. It's for me, it's worth doing. They've added extra bits and bobs, all the details on the website, which I'll link to in the description. In terms of the add-on itself, it's lovely. It really is lovely. I can't stress it more how much I like this aircraft. Now, in terms of the ambience, the feeling, etc., it's lovely because it's different to the sort of run-of-the-mill, normal 737 A320s that we're all accustomed to. There's something with a little bit of variation, something that's a little bit different, and it makes it really interesting to fly and operate. It's got lots of little nuances, such as the V2 speed, not being able to put it in on the MAG, the fact that you have to put it in up here. The differences, some of these like profile are very similar in the wording and the logic to, say, the MD11, the TFDI 717, for example, using profile, etc. So the auto flight system is different and interesting as a result. The whole aircraft I would describe as interesting. We're obviously at the mix, at the changeover in the 80s, 90s into this mix of EFIS, so electronic flight instrumentation system, and also the old school steam gauges. For me, this is, you know, it screams 757, 767, which obviously the 767 was the major competitor at the time. But I absolutely love this sort of layout where we're trying to be technical, but we haven't quite had the confidence to leave all the steam gauges behind, which for me makes it a fascinating period in aviation and a fascinating aircraft to operate. In terms of the tools that come with the aircraft, the EFB, for me it's decent. It doesn't go into too much. It doesn't really sit there and hold your hand either. You still need to do stuff in terms of learning systems and being able to do stuff. My previous concerns about its descent management have been relatively allayed by this. You still need to use air brake where ideally you wouldn't want to be using air brake, but at the end of the day it's a sim, and as aircrew you're going to become more familiar with your airframe, so you're going to know how you need to manage the descent. And as I say, flying a few flights in this, you need a bit more time to learn to manage a descent properly. But the aircraft is, if you delay your descent, you create a whole world of pain for yourself. And if you don't set up the descent correctly, you're going to create a whole world of pain. We were okay there. Likewise, the sort of LNAV element with the that big bulbous curve at the end, it's just because it struggled to draw the setup, and that's because it basically looked at it and went, what the heck are you expecting me to do here? Which is understandable, you know, we weren't really giving it a fair crack of the whip in many respects with that, but that sort of not architect but artifact, that sort of impact on the drawing on the screen is potentially also as a result of the fact that we're trying to use the newer system of drawing the lines. The actual original setup didn't have the curves. It was almost like a join the dots type thing, which you can do in this. I've changed the setup so that it didn't do that, but you can do it in this. So so that's something that is an option for you should you wish to do it. So we're going to go right here. I'm cutting the corners, which is not great in an A300. Taxi, where's this yellow van going? One of the things I'm going to mention, a bit of a stutter there, one of the things I'm going to mention is that for me, I've had difficulty with the nose wheel steering or nose wheel control, such that I've had to map the slider on my Thrustmaster Warthog, because for some reason I've got it set up such that my pedals, my rudder pedals, don't seem to get the full range of limit of the nose wheel steering, so it's probably a settings thing for me. So in terms of the aesthetics, externals, really nice, absolutely gorgeous. I've got no qualms about them whatsoever. Internals, again, I would say it's possibly not the strongest, but it's an Airbus, and therefore it's less bland than an A320, but it's not quite to the same level as, say, a 737 in terms of the difficulty for facing the cockpit, really. So ergonomics wise, this is a much better aircraft than, say, a 737, but for me it still falls short of the A320 in terms of ergonomics, and that again makes it interesting, because all of a sudden you've got elements to deal with in terms of trying to manage the cockpit, which is fantastic. I just think it's great. So the cockpit in terms of aesthetics is great as well. Let's go down here, find a stand down here. We'll just park ourselves up. Ooh, turned a bit quick there. We'll run him over. He doesn't need to survive, does he? I don't even know. I'm not even on a stand here, am I? God. Trying to talk and do things at the same time is not in my repertoire, really. See if we can get ourselves lined up a bit better here now. Not really. Oh, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to give up on a bad thing. APU should be online now. Let's get that. APU should be online, and it is. We will put APU Air on as well. And I'm going to come down here and go dunk dunk. Lovely with the blink there. We'll come over here. Might as well do a little bit more while we're here. Ground equipment. We will open the main cargo, forward cargo, aft cargo, bulk cargo. We'll attach the. We don't want to attach that. We want to attach the left stairs. Pop the chocks in. Toggle luggage. Attach GPU. We'll do the whole lot. Disarm all doors. And then we're going to open that door. So as I say, the EFB is great. So yeah, the interior modelling is really nice. The complexity is far greater than an A320. Absolutely love the attention to detail. 3D modelling is brilliant. The textures being an Airbus could have been really bland, but when you look here you see the wear and tear in this aircraft. This is an old and tired airframe, and an absolutely beautiful one at that. Love it for its character, love it for how they've done it. Really nice. Really nice. Then we get to the sort of systems and the modelling. Very high detail, very high fidelity in terms of a lot of the functionality. There's not a lot of stuff that's not clickable. Just really nicely done. And then finally you get to sort of the flying. The flying is brilliant in this thing. It's just absolutely fantastic. So bringing everything to one small puddle. What do I think? I think this is a fantastic add-on. I think Inibuilds have done it again. As I say, I've followed them through from X-Plane 11, possibly 10. I don't know if they were in 10, but certainly they were in X-Plane 11. But I followed them through with their A300s from X-Plane 11, 12, and now into Microsoft Flight Simulator. And I think this is a really lovely add-on. Let me see if we can just get that noise down. Where's it gone? There we go, that's better. And then finally you get to the flying, and she's a beauty to fly. Really nice. You have to think ahead of the aircraft, which is something that I don't always do. I get distracted and you know, my attention's drawn to other things, and then all of a sudden I realise that I'm not paying attention to what I should be doing. But this aircraft is one that you kind of have to keep ahead of, and you have to learn, dare I say it. It takes a little bit of effort to get to grips with the systems, because they're not exactly the same as a 737 or an A320, or indeed anything that goes before it. I think probably for me there's a nice blend of MD-11 A320 sort of in here. It's very nice. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, don't forget to tick like, share, subscribe. Particularly sharing and subscribing makes a huge difference to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.